Good morning, and thank you for joining this month's Worksoft webinar. Today's webinar is going to be on automated testing for SuccessFactors, how to empower employees and ensure process excellence. I'm Austin Chandler, Senior Content Manager for Worksoft, and your host for today's webinar. Today's presentation will be recorded, and a link to the on-demand session will be available for those who are unable to attend or those who wish to share or view the information. Due to a large number of participants, lines will be muted, and we may answer some questions if we have time at the end of our presentation. So please use the questions feature to submit a question. But if we don't get to yours, we will we'll send you an email reply and get in touch and make sure that we answer any questions you have. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce today's presenter. Ty Henson is our Director of Solution Architects for North America. Ty has more than 30 years of expertise in IT and applications experience. He's served in a variety of development, QA, and leadership positions, providing him with an acute understanding of the challenges top firms face in mitigating risk in complex systems. Ty has worked with Worksoft products for more than 15 years, and he's recognized as an expert in helping clients realize the benefits of sustainable test automation. Today, he'll be discussing how organizations can drive employee engagement, ensure process excellence, and smooth efficiency throughout the company with automated testing for SAP SuccessFactors. So I'll go ahead and turn things over to Ty.
All right, thank you, Austin, and welcome everyone from wherever and whenever you are in the world. It is absolutely my pleasure to be here, and you can call me Ty, even though I realize for at least the next 30 to 45 minutes, I'll be doing all of the talking. But no, I think you'll learn from this that I've been with Worksoft for 15 years, and I was actually working with Worksoft 3 years even prior to that. I am working in automation because I love it, and so I am absolutely hoping that after the fact we can catch up. I love to listen and get your perspective, as well as bring very valuable information to the table, which is what we're going to try to do today. So let's get started. This is a unique presentation, so I really don't know how long it's going to take. I'm certainly not going to waste anybody's time. We're going to jump right in and get right to the punch. We'll start by updating our perspective on SuccessFactors itself briefly. I don't want to spend too much time on that because you're here because you're already interested. You're already either using SuccessFactors or you're headed for SuccessFactors, and you're interested in the testing that can bring great value for that initiative. So we'll focus most of our time on how Worksoft can bring more value with less effort by helping you comprehensively test your SuccessFactors and more. So to get started, I pulled this from an older webinar we did on SuccessFactors. Not too long ago, it was new to everyone, and it was a recognition that HCM needed attention to help us find, focus on, and care for our colleagues. Worksoft has many customers using and testing SuccessFactors, and it is primarily from this feedback where I've heard that the goal was not just to move existing features to the web, but to accept innovations and be more agile in getting to them. The need to attract top talent and retain them were certainly a big part of this. So I think this audience knows, but SuccessFactors is quite comprehensive and provides major updates, 4 updates per year for several years, and as of late, it seems to be 2. And that's to add updates and innovation into the product landscape. I've heard it said by many that the major updates each year can be like Christmas gifts. In hindsight, I recall the things I hear most about these things, the benefits of SuccessFactors and why people go there, the power and yet ease of use around business rules and experience management is cutting edge, is I think often the term that is used, and yet simple yet streamlined workflow capabilities. So there's real advantages in getting there, no doubt. I would say that today it's no longer new to everyone, yet I realize not everyone may be on cloud-based HCM like SuccessFactors at this point. But now that capability has proven itself quite valuable and possibly less scary if you're not there yet because of that reference material that already exists. But of course, there are still new challenges in the mix. There will always be challenges. I liked a blog post from early January this year on peoplehum.com that summarized and reinforced some of the current challenges that I hear about. But my real purpose here is simply to reinforce the concept that SuccessFactors, like many of our applications, can provide much value, but we have to make sure it remains working well for us in the volatility of agility. And that's a term I started using recently. Really is kind of synonymous with the face of change. The quick summary statement here is that more than ever, and our recent pandemic surely heightened where I'm going with this, but more than ever, we companies cannot afford to screw up in this area. It's too important. And it's for this reason that we're here today to talk about making sure that we don't. As I'm sure many of you know, SAP SuccessFactors is a suite of talent management solutions along with robust Worksoft workforce analytics and planning with a basic next generation HR solution, which enhances the executive's insight and decision making. It ensures that you're having the right individuals with the right skills do the right job. Once again, anecdotally, these are some things I hear about what is going well and what maybe not so much. As mentioned, SuccessFactors has proven itself as a great solution, so the positive feedback is not so surprising. But the negative continues to reinforce what we've known for some time at Worksoft, just not everyone gets it just yet. Notice how the negative is about the times of update or change. They're about the devices, often the bring your own device or BYOD devices that your employees are using, and about the infrastructure that includes your company network in part. But do I really need to test my cloud application? Don't the vendors test the applications that they deliver? Yes, they do. And I've witnessed yet that some will tell you that you don't need to test that further. But it is exactly the negative feedback results from the prior slide that reinforces the need for testing. With so many organizations implementing SAP SuccessFactors, there are bound to be challenges unique to each organization. Even with the push towards standardization with the latest iteration of cloud applications, your organization setup will always be unique to you. You've probably heard the devil's in the details. Here it means the gotchas are in the config, the devices, and the infrastructure that is unique to you. This really goes for any highly configurable cloud application, especially SuccessFactors. You need to make sure that the updates and changes work for your configuration, your devices, and your network configuration, not just in the beginning or for your transformation, but for all of the change events that you may have, including the biannual major updates. I think in 2023, we're looking at the May 19th and November 17th, if I've got that correct. Configuration modifications will be in between and ongoing. New devices can be involved at any point, and any additional change that affects your application or its integration to other applications. Some companies have avoided going after automation testing for complex modern web applications like SuccessFactors because of the immediate challenges that they experienced in trying. In short, sometimes the better it is for the user, the harder it may be for the automation. I know many automation solutions that have current struggles with SuccessFactors. It has become more complex. The use of new parts of the document object model, or DOM, called Shadow DOM, is relatively new and not supported by all automation, and SuccessFactors uses it. But I'm happy to report that Worksoft not only supports, but optimizes for SuccessFactors and many other complex web applications, including the ability to support homegrown or custom-built web applications. So if the only barrier to automation was the complexity and web-based challenges, we'd be good at this point. But of course, there's more. SuccessFactors, like most applications that are configurable, keep companies guessing as to how they will have the assurances that they will automate the right things or that they are complete in their automation. From an ASUG Spotlight survey, 46% feel that knowing what to automate is in itself a barrier to automation. Making sure you've automated complete processes, or how do I know that I've captured all of the steps involved? It's somewhat like a deer in the headlights. And then among the many things we might consider to use, how will we know what can help us build automation properly and quickly? Even more feel that this is a barrier to automation use. In fact, 69% in SAP Insider Change Management Survey cite the speed of testing to meet business needs as a key criteria for engaging automation. And finally, will it last? And 72% are quite concerned. Can it adapt to change, or how hard is it for me to make changes? Well, I'd like to posit that these are all legitimate concerns, yet they are barriers that Worksoft has overcome for and with our customers for quite some time, not just in SuccessFactors, but in many applications. So what is it that Worksoft has that can minimize or eliminate all of these conceptual and tactical barriers and challenges? I love the reminder that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. I know I'm doing all of the talking for the moment, but Worksoft has been listening to our market for as long as we have been around. So when it comes to HR transformations and even run and maintain, Worksoft has always thrown technology at the pain that we hear. We've introduced technology to try to always make the complex more simple. Our platform, when applied to initiatives, is transformative for those involved, like the analysts, testers, compliance teams, and more. Really, anyone can contribute to the process. And the result is collaboration, leading to comprehensive outcomes. It's continuous, but no longer burdensome for tedious, repetitive manual activities where we can now supplement with automation. It's extendable to support the proliferation of devices that I'm sure you're experiencing in your workplace. And it's intelligent. Of course, we strategically use algorithms to provide our features, and we continue to innovate in every way that we can to further our abilities for more value. Though there really isn't a linear requirement for use of our platform, a common one is to put what we call capture into the hands of some of our key users. I'll elaborate in a moment, but capture will allow any user to contribute their knowledge by recording some full processes or even functions that they know. This led to our ability to use their contributions for documentation, functional understanding, and codeless automation to use in repetitive testing cycles. And for comprehensive testing outcome, you must test the same way your users use the system. Otherwise, you have gaps in testing. So what a better way to do this than if we know exactly what our users are doing through their contributions. We can then use some of that automation to go beyond testing, but also assisting the users with processes. This is getting into robotic process automation, or RPA. This is not required, but it's certainly an extension of value that will be baked right in and ready to help. And when needed, we can certainly review the activity that we are collecting for the purpose of determining if we need to optimize for more efficiency. That is, we are witnessing any variations of business process flow that don't still align with what we think they should be. So I know I just hit you quickly with a drink from a fire hose. What I'd like to do is review a few of the key aspects that I've just referred to, and then we'll look at some of this more visually and live in my environment. In working with a prospect not too long ago, she got very excited about the speed and ease of use that I showed her about creating codeless automation in her hiring process. But almost as quickly as the smile came, it faded when she said, "Ty, this is great, but we have several hundreds of business processes to automate, and we don't have time to get this done." My response to her actually brought back the smile. I said, think about what you've just seen, and you guys will witness this in just a few moments if you've not already. You put capture in the hands of the user, and it builds automation rapidly. I said to her, you're simply going to put capture in the hands of each of your users, or at least key users. You can quickly crowdsource your automation with the activity that your users do, and as important, for your configured system. Worksoft has been witness to large endeavors being automated in no time through this platform. And this represents your users' activity against your proprietary application configurations. You will effectively be testing the system the same way your users use it, and this is the goal. In one approach, Ariel Corporation leveraged interns with Capture to quickly source the information and automation needed. And it certainly doesn't hurt when involving everyone as needed is an official initiative. This is what we've seen with Cardinal Health, and they're doing quite well with their automation. So we'll use Capture together in a moment, but it's really easy to use. And it's like digital photography because we can turn on Capture, see what we get, and choose what we use. We get a lot of positive feedback on our Capture feature, and we've included a quote here about it from IT Central Station. Capture an end-to-end process across applications. SuccessFactors consists of many APIs which allow integration with other systems like learning content systems and payroll systems. It consists of the integration center functionality, which makes it possible for professional users to build easy integrations. It also consists of SAP Cloud Platform integration, middleware, and prepackaged content for integrating SAP SuccessFactors into S/4HANA or SAP ERP Central component, and several party systems. Capture full end-to-end processes from start to finish across integrations will ensure that your entire process works. SuccessFactors has several types of modules you'll implement and use at various times. There are SuccessFactors modules that deal with all aspects of human resource management, such as recruitment and onboarding, core HR and payroll operations, workforce planning and talent management. Implementing different modules can take anywhere between 3 and 10 months. The bigger modules, such as Employee Central and Payroll, take more time to implement. In the meantime, operations at your organization do not stop and continues to use legacy systems. Using Capture can help accelerate. From the fire hose drink a minute ago, I mentioned that we have users contribute captures, and from this, we can get great documentation. We'll look at this more specifically in a moment also, but we can generate step-by-step documents with images of exactly what the user has contributed. Olive from Deutsche Telekom has been able to show year-over-year improvement in their audit check process through this capability. The documentation is natural. It's a natural byproduct of what we are collecting, but it has been very valuable for our customers. Carrier's quote talks about using it for future training, but we can also produce documentation from the test automation results as well. Anything our product completes or anything that the users performs can be provided then in document form. But before I get to some of the live demonstration, I want to reinforce this concept of testing and RPA based on your user's activity and the ability to know where we stand in coverage against all of that activity. Many customers have recognized the ability to avoid doing lengthy, fallible time and motion studies. You know, the ones where you put stickers on the wall and ask people to try to remember and spell out their processes for you. Dutch Railways was able to avoid this by using process capture to gain this needed insight. So everything I've been talking about leads us to this, a visual of our Worksoft Connective Automation Platform, or CAP for short. For the next few minutes, what I'd like to do is use it as a map as we walk through the highlights of the features that will provide the value that we've been discussing. CAP has been built up over time as the innovations within the Worksoft platform being put together into this connective automation platform. We started with Codeless automation many years ago, and we have a very strong and mature automation engine providing for all of this capability, yet it remains codeless and therefore collaborative. And we'll see more of that along the way within our demonstration. We then provided the ability to run it at scale and to make sure that we can test for the variations of, for example, our web applications or our mobile applications that are being used by a proliferation of devices. We'll talk more about that and see some of that in just a moment. Capture became so integral. It's available right within the automation editor, but we've provided it in distributable form. So we can put it on the desk of any user and allow them to contribute. And this is what we've been talking about, crowdsourcing our automation. Last but not least, at least for a core, I'm going to highlight this next one, which is process intelligence. And you might already be recognizing the fact that many of the arrows from this framework are pointing right into process intelligence. That's the point. With this part of our platform, it is not intended that there's more for you to do. It's that we're taking all of our data from various angles and providing you with more value through knowledge. And this is what has really unleashed our ability to allow you to understand your user activity easily and then measure comprehensively to the automation coverage that you're providing in your initiative. What I'd like to do is to demonstrate a few of these features in my live environment. Once again, I'll use this kind of as our map along the way. And I want to make sure to hit on some of these highlights that are bringing this great value in the approach with the Worksoft Connective Automation platform. So at this point, what I'm going to do is bounce over to my live environment and bring up SuccessFactors. And of course, I've timed out. That's the beauty of a live demonstration. Bear with me while I just get signed back in. There we go. Now, what I'd like to do is start with capture. When I mentioned that I was going to use the previous platform slide as our roadmap, we're going to start at the top left with the ability for any user to contribute. And what this looks like is the ability for the user to pull up capture. It is very much a recording mechanism, but it is much more than just record. And I'll explain why as we go. I mean, starting out, basically the user is going to click the camera button. They're going to be telling capture, hey, I'm about to perform some activities. And from this point, we just do what we normally do. And this is where we have the ability to allow these users to contribute what they're doing by just doing the processes that they know. This is what crowdsourcing looks like in very tactical form. Any user can pull up capture and perform processes that they know. And as a result, what we're collecting in the capture window on the right is step-by-step information that is quite robust, actually. It's immediately automation, but it's also imagery and information that allows us to generate documentation. And as of late, we also have the ability to produce functional flows and comprehensive visuals of what is happening within the system, and we're going to explore some of this together. It starts with capture, which is why I wanted to start in this way, by just basically going at least several steps into the fact that this is the user performing the activity and capture is just contributing. Collecting. If the user finds capture as a distraction, they can minimize it, yet still continue with their activities and will continue to pick up all of the steps. But I did mention that it was more than just record. Without going too far into the details, and I definitely have to keep a close watch on the time because there's many things that I want to make sure to show you. The bottom line is that this, in effect, is a mini editor. And with very little training, any user can be comfortable in using it to contribute. Where I'm going with this is the user can insert screenshots, the user can insert commentary, the user can insert validation steps, even at this early stage. Of course, they can be added later very easily and at any time. But if the user knows things in the beginning, they can contribute this knowledge. You can see the trash can. You can delete steps if you've made a mistake. You can reorder steps if needed, if you need to modify what you're contributing. But in the end, it's very easy, yet very powerful for the user to contribute. Now, don't get me wrong, I said a few things and I don't want to dilute the message. If the user only turns on the recording button and turns it off in the end and contributes their knowledge about the process, you've met the objective. It's just that it is more than just record and playback, and they do have the ability to contribute more even at this early stage. Now, as a result of all of this, basically, we are going to get documentation. We're going to, here's a document of basically what we were doing there. Now, I do want to show you that it's going to start off with this series of boxes. This is our way of saying, hey, this is what the user contributed. Here's what's in this document. But I want you to pin this visual mentally for a second, because we're going to come back to this in just a few moments. Basically, this is a single capture, yet the real heart of the document is when we begin to scroll down, and we can see that we're going to take a screenshot when we invoke capture. We're going to tactically begin collecting the steps that the user performs. We're going to narrate that and provide that narrative right within the documentation. So step-by-step documentation. And this is what some of those customer quotes were referring to, the ability to generate this so quickly and easily in either Word or PDF form, and really use it in any way necessary. One mention was to create training documentation. And though we're not necessarily trying to compete with training documentation applications, as mentioned, this is a natural byproduct of what we produce. Now, this is SuccessFactors, and these are the steps like I was capturing there in document form. While we're here, I'm going to just kind of show you that this is Salesforce. You may not be interested in Salesforce at all, but oh no, I'm sorry, this is a Fiori order. So turn on capture, go in, place your order, and we've got the step-by-step information for everything that was done. This was probably a better next reference than Salesforce, but Salesforce can be included and accommodated for just as easily. The point is that we are not just SuccessFactors, but we can provide absolutely great value in working with SuccessFactors and other applications. So the documentation is very important. It's a natural byproduct of what we do, but remember at that top of that document, there was that series of boxes, and I wanted to explain what we're looking at. Basically, as the users perform these captures, each capture is going to come into process intelligence. Now, this was that purple box. In fact, let's do what I promised. Let's use this as our map. So when we do our captures, we are going to absolutely be sending that over to our codeless automation, but we will also be sending it to process intelligence. In fact, process intelligence has, as of late, become the central repository for all of this crowdsourced information that we're receiving from our colleagues, basically. And here's why. When the users are willing to turn on capture and save those captures, the first one that came in was quite robust here in functionality, and then the next capture that was saved added to the mix. And what's really happening here is that we can begin to visualize all of the functional steps that the users are capturing. But the real power comes by storing these centrally and then asking process intelligence to show me holistically, what does this look like within my application? Now, in this particular example, I'm filtered into manage and maintain employee data. But you can see that that series of captures that we saw linearly just a moment ago and independently have now been mashed together. And it looks a little bit more simple, but basically there was reuse, there was overlap in the functionality that was happening. And that's how process intelligence can keep us aware of what's really happening in the system and what does that look like. Where do we have processes that are reusable, that we don't have to duplicate? And basically it goes from there and goes even further. I'm gonna not go too far into the weeds, but I wanna introduce a concept for you as well. When you're getting started with SuccessFactors, SAP does have best practices for SuccessFactors. And one of the things you can do is load your target models. Let's just keep it simple and say you can load your best practice or target model information into the system first, if you choose to. It is not a requirement, but when you do have target models present, we are going to highlight them in this orange color. So I wanted to elaborate on what's happening here is the fact that we've established in this particular snapshot or in this particular system that there are some target models that we want to measure and align to, and those are highlighted in orange. But you can see that there's a few white boxes along the way. So effectively, one of the use cases and very powerful elements here is that we can begin to measure, do we have variations outside of our target models? what are the users doing that we might not be aware of, because we think of these processes in the orange box form, yet there's users that are doing things that we may not be necessarily aware of within the system. And we can see those things. We may not have considered collecting missing information as a natural part of a business process, but my user experienced that. And what that means is I need to test for that. So let's talk about coverage. And that's the real powerful element that we want to get to. When we bring our captures into process intelligence, I mentioned that it's very much like digital photography. We can bring things in, we can see what's happening, and then we can choose what we want to provide automation for. We want to make sure that we're doing that comprehensively, but we have the big picture and we get to pick and choose what we're going to use. For each of those variants that are coming in, I can establish any one of them as a target model if I need to extend into a new area, or I can select and send this over to certify, is what we call that part of our platform, for using the codeless automation for repetitive testing. So it's just the precursor to having extremely powerful and comprehensive automation, being completely knowledgeable about what's happening and what we're going after. Now, last but not least here, notice how when we have automation, and we're going to run this at scale up here in the top right corner, but there's a dotted line arrow back to process intelligence. That's what I wanted to point out here for just a second, because what's happening and what we're seeing is that when we take the steps that we've talked about that come from capture and we use them and we run them, we get credit for them. That arrow that's pointing back is turning these boxes blue. And that's why I wanted to start to explain some of this coloration. Beyond the orange, which is our target model, if something turns blue, that means we're using automation to test it. We have coverage there. Now, you can see in this particular picture that I have a little ways to go. This is a very simplified form, but the bottom line is that we can see that visually, and we will also always have a dashboard available to let us know. For example, we have 36% automation activity coverage in testing. So the dashboard is going to keep us knowledgeable real time in terms of where we're at with our initiative. Now, I really didn't mean to go to this level, but let me explain, because we're here, that if you configure some things in your process intelligence, for example, weighted cost for activities, we can even quantify those values for you. This is the annualized realized savings for what we're getting out of our automation. And you can see we've got a long way to go. But also, as we begin to see all of this activity, we can measure to the potential. We can make sure that you're achieving where you want to be with your automation. And in the end, basically, fully testing your system the same way that your users are using it. And that's the point. So process intelligence keeps us aware of what's going on. In fact, one other little highlight I'll show you is because this is the beginnings of analysis as well. You can begin to do things like, let's turn on the duration of what we're collecting. Do I have any slowness in my application? And in fact, I'm bouncing around a little bit, but this is the beginnings of perhaps I've got some processes in my application that I can automate and provide as RPA to assist my users. And in that, one of the criteria that we're often looking for is maybe what's running slowly, what's being used very frequently but runs slowly for my users. Can I possibly automate that and provide more value? So while we were here, while we were looking at the picture, I wanted to give you some insight to the fact that our platform is connected, and all of this data is being used in various ways to bring extended value to your initiatives. So with that, what I'd like to do is bounce back to, or bounce over to, the automation itself. Some of you may have seen this. When we perform capture, we are going to receive the steps in readable form that represent the automation. And so what we're looking at here is basically step by step through the screens and functions that we went through. You know, you could already see that we're modularizing box by box for what the users are doing, but we're collecting exactly what those steps are in readable form. And that means that if we're ever trying to troubleshoot, we're not sitting down two people at a program to say, is this the right thing? We're looking at a list of readable steps, and we're dragging and dropping and moving things We're right-clicking and bringing up capture and inserting things if we need to at any point. Everything is at your fingertips to make sure that you can do whatever you need to with your automation to represent exactly what the user used to do. And in fact, quick reminder, I know we were just there, but this was built based on users contributing their knowledge about the process. Well, one of the other key features I just wanted to show, and I was trying to pick and choose the things, but one of the things that's very important to me is the ability in this modularization to basically tap into others and share information and share automation. So for example, I'm going to pick on the fact that I did not capture the login. That is because we will often automate the login process, and therefore I can just drag that into my process. Now, this ability to search for other automation that either I've done or others have done goes across the board, and it is quick and easy to do this, and yet you can still control. You can see that some of these things are kind of grayed out. That's where we've begun to control to make sure that I can, for example, see the login process, but I'm not able to change the login process. So we absolutely can protect the automation that's involved for those repetitive cycles of testing that we're going to be doing. Now, one of the things I did want to do is just run something for you using my desktop. The irony of this is that this is not normally how I'm going to run my automation. I'll show you next how we will normally run this, but let's, for example, run this one just to see what some of those steps that we were, like what we were capturing there, would look like in motion if we were to, in fact, just run them on my desktop. Now, while we're doing this, I'm going to also just elaborate on the fact that that drag and drop for bringing in the login often extends to dragging and dropping other applications into the mix. So in reality, what we're often going to be doing is constructing end-to-end scenarios that really will start in one application and perform some stuff, grab some data, head for SuccessFactors, do some more functionality there, grab and validate data, and head on to even other applications in the mix. We are really good at true end-to-end capabilities, and yet it's done using what we're looking at here, which is readable, sustainable automation performing the actions involved. Okay, so let's head for how do we normally run this automation, Ty, if it's not done on the desktop like you've just shown me, and maybe you already have an idea of what that might be, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to throw it into a virtual background. I do have to sign in here, so bear with me. I was trying to avoid as many sign-ins as possible. All right, but what we're looking at the moment is called our continuous testing manager. And it's an important part of the platform because it saves me more time by taking that automation off of my desktop and throwing it into a virtual background. For anything that it runs, it's going to start off by letting me know what is the state of my world. This is my check engine light, right? And when I've set up to do great testing, the same way my users do it, and I receive notifications and I receive visuals like this, then I can know with confidence that we're running well, or is there something that I need to look into? There's a variety of use cases here. This can even serve as a catalog for what can my users sign in and get to actually kick off on their own if they want to run something. But also, it's going to serve the needs for those cycles of testing, those continuous testing cycles that might even be integrated to our CI/CD realm. So let me introduce you very quickly to what we call a suite. It is a package of automation. You can introduce any amount of automation or even folders of automation into your suite. You can indicate if things can run in parallel or do I need to very sequentially control them among also many granular capabilities that you can control. It's easy to do, yet gives you the power that you might need for certain initiatives that you might be doing. One of the most popular is the scheduling. This is the old set it and forget it. I want to run things every few minutes, or I want to run them every few years, or anything in between, and yet extremely simple for me to make that happen. I can kick things off from the editor we were just in. I can kick things off from my CI/CD DevOps tools through interaction with Worksoft. We're integrated, and yet I can also kick things off ad hoc, such as this. And that's what I wanted to do, is give you a little bit of visual. The whole point that I was trying to make earlier is that we want to get it off of our desktop. We want to remain productive. And so you can see that I have kicked something off to run, yet I could be doing whatever I need to. We provide a SPY window for those times when you might choose to go look at it. And typically in demonstrations, we will do this. What I wanted to show you in this SPY window is that as things are waking up, it's starting up 2 virtual sessions in the background so that it can run things simultaneously. And of course, you know, it takes a minute to log in. This is a virtual workstation that's going to sign in and act just like a user. Not only do we want to test the same things our users are doing, but we need to use the applications the same way the users do. There's functionality at the surface level in these applications. So it's important that the automation test from the UI perspective, that it actually click buttons and type into fields. This one's getting underway, signing in to do a Fiori process. I'm going to bounce over to the other one and give it a few seconds and see where this one's at. This one's underway doing SuccessFactors. So simultaneously, I have HR testing and can be doing any other amount of testing, yet the whole time I remain productive and I have a great indication of the status of my world from the dashboard that we started off in CTM. Now, I mentioned these integrations. I wanted to bounce back for just a second and show you. I'm going to pick on this one, though there's many. We're integrated to Soulman. We're integrated to SAP Cloud ALM, and this one's becoming very relevant for our SuccessFactors audience. Basically, in March, we'll be having another webinar, a joint webinar with SAP's Marketeer, where we will showcase how Worksoft integrates with SAP ALM and the added benefit that this collaboration brings to SuccessFactors customers. Hopefully you're using SAP Cloud ALM or headed for using SAP Cloud ALM. If you're not, that's okay, that's acceptable. And we can integrate to other things, but that's one that I certainly wanted to highlight in this particular experience. Now, to take this a little bit further, what I'd like to do is go back and talk about some of the extended capabilities that we want to get into. These are going to be important with respect to the proliferation of devices that you might be using or allowing your users to use. So let's go back to our map. Sorry for bouncing around a little bit. And what I'm referring to is up here in the top right corner. Worksoft, as you may know, has acquired a company last year that has helped us rapidly extend into cloud operations and have true SaaS portions of our operations that allow you to do some very powerful things. It can take the same automation from web, and we continually and rapidly are working on actually bringing the products together. We've made some good strides, and that will continue. But when it comes to web, for example, I've been able to take my same web and then test it in what's called compatibility testing. So that's very important for SuccessFactors, because what that means is you can take the same type of process that we were looking at and yet test it against various desktop operating systems or various browsers or versions of those browsers or various mobile devices or versions of the OS and or of the device itself. And you can see it's a spaghetti complication at this point. Bottom line, there's a number of contexts that your users may be using to hit your application when you allow them to bring their own device. And that's why we have provided for this ability to make sure that everything is tested. You may remember that one of the negative feedbacks was from someone saying, my device is not working. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of insight into our abilities in this particular area. So to get there, I'm just going to go in through my browser and give you a little bit of live visual about this capability. All right, so getting to the right area here, I'm going to keep this nice and painless, and I'm watching the clock because I'm running low on time, but basically the bottom line is that we have the ability to take that same automation here's my SuccessFactors create requisition. And in this particular case, I can take it not only off of my desktop or even out of the virtual, but I can run it in a SaaS form. I can run it out in the cloud. And the importance of this is twofold. One is that sometimes you might want to be testing things from geolocated locations. That'll become relevant in performance testing that I was going to talk about here in just a moment. But also with availability testing. Sometimes you might want to come out of your environment and do testing from the outside world. And this part of our platform is going to provide for that. But the second and more important that we already did just talk about is that compatibility testing, the ability to test in various contexts against what's happening. So you've seen some of this playback happening already in automation form. I just wanted to reinforce that we can bring this over to the cloud and ultimately test it against those contexts. And it's very simple to make this happen. And it's so simple that I want to make sure that you've seen what it looks like and how powerful this is to help you get there. So when this is completed, what I'm going to really do is just head over to a test scenario, and we're going to do a new one together. Let's go to the library and create. As was mentioned, we'll call this our webinar demo. And as was mentioned, we're always about modularity and reuse. So I can search for any number of components and string them together quite easily. Then I can say, hey, I'm ready to go. I'm going to head for testing this guy in the cloud. And we'll proceed to then selecting the contexts. And let's do one manually first so that you can see the power of what is at our fingertips. But we're going to make this even easier in just a second. Bear with me, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. We can test against various environments. We're always agnostic to what we're doing. And there's various cloud platforms that we can leverage for doing all of this testing. But here you can begin to see that, for example, I can choose that I want to test on a mobile phone. I can choose from any number of devices that I want to include in my testing, and the orientation and the operating system that's involved and what browser on that device, or we can even get into native app testing as needed as well. Very powerful in what this is providing, and yet easily built and easily constructed at your fingertips. Even the resolution when it's relevant. I went over to desktop to show that there's certain times when maybe I want to make sure to test things in different resolutions. We can capture screens automatically for every step that's happening, and we can even capture videos from what's happening so that in the end we're going to get a video representation of what's happened. So it's very powerful in providing our ability. Let me make sure I'm choosing the right things here. Let's select one more. Putting what we want, so I'm currently running on Windows 11, so I'm going to include Windows 10 is what I wanted to jump in and provide real quick. Let's do all instructions and video. There we go. I'm hoping everybody's hearing me and that what I'm not experiencing is a web outage of any form. Okay, I'm not going to hold this up at the moment, but the extension that I wanted to get to is the fact that when we're doing this type of testing, we also have the ability for you to package all of the different types of contexts that you might want to test. So basically, you can very conveniently put all of those varieties of selections together so that in the end, you're just making a selection such as this and very easily adding it to your testing context. So you don't have to build those one by one for every initiative that you're coming through. Of course, you will be able to easily select a group and say, okay, here's the standard set of devices that my users are using, and that's what we need to test for. And in the end, you can schedule this like we were talking about from Continuous Testing Manager. You can kick it off and monitor it live as needed, but the intent is that this is now going to happen in the cloud. It's going to happen automatically on our behalf, and it's going to send us notifications of all of the testing that we've asked it to do in all of the contexts that we ask it to run through. So this becomes very powerful very quickly, and it's really a multiplier. It's going to extend our capabilities quite rapidly. And so for that reason, I wanted to introduce you to another capability that comes with this, because when you are now doing so much testing, it's important that we actually use the computer to help us analyze the testing that's happening. So I wanted to show you, give you some quick insight to the fact that it's going to collect everything along the way automatically for what's happening. And then what I was looking for, bear with me one second. Is that it has the ability to analyze through algorithms exactly what's happening and even determine if the failures involved are relevant. Here we go. I was looking for a guy with some failures, but to automatically determine if the failures were involved and provide an ML-based root cause analysis. So basically, we can analyze exactly what has happened within the process and determine with confidence, is this really an error that has happened, or did the environment, did the web environment, for example, hiccup or go away, and in which case we want to maybe automatically retest this. We're going to use algorithms to help determine the root cause analysis when things go wrong. And then you will be able to override and explain, oh, that wasn't the problem, actually it was this, and then the algorithm gets stronger. So as you continue to use the application, we're gonna put a computer brain to help you analyze your outcomes. And if, for example, you've run hundreds or even thousands of tests and experienced failures, most of those failures will be determined by the algorithm whether they are actually something you need to look at, or if retesting was the appropriate move and that activity would automatically be taken. So we're going to enlist the help of the computer to do as much as possible for us along the way. And yet, last but not least, in our capabilities, I also wanted to introduce you to one of those additional negative feedbacks that came in, which is my application is slow. Now that may sound a little ironic. You're using a cloud-based application, and it harkens back to that question of, do I really need to test my cloud-based application? But that cloud-based application is in part using your infrastructure. And so it very much so can be the fact that even though other cloud-based users of that application are running okay, you in your company may be experiencing some problems for any given reason. So in the end, you have the ability to take those same business processes like we've been talking about and create or paint the picture of what is a load of what I see my users doing, and then be able to drive performance testing against your application in a variety of ways to see how it's going to react accordingly to all of this activity. We can look for peak situations or intermittent situations of load on our system, and sustained. This is the hardest one for applications to keep up with. We can very easily establish a step model to ramp it up and see where we begin to have problems. And then last, well, I keep saying last but not least, but in performance, and this is even when you're using a cloud application, one of the elements is that the transactions, the proprietary part, the way that you're configured can be relevant to even the performance of your application. And that is why we provide for this capability to make sure to eliminate or alleviate those negative feedback results from users having slowness against your application. So in the end, I've eaten up most of our time. In summary, what I want to leave you with is this: don't leave change to chance. Don't suffer from the volatility of agility. The two major updates for SuccessFactors each year can bring new gifts, but they can be disruptive. Prepare, be ready, use automation. And if you search blogs about SuccessFactors challenges, I think you'll find, like I did, that the Worksoft platform and the approach to your HCM initiative and ongoing use will alleviate many of them. Lufthansa uses SuccessFactors and Worksoft. They significantly reduced what was mentioned earlier as those months-long module implementation projects with automated testing and achieved 95% test coverage in the end, and now they keep up with cycles of change using the same automation. We would like for you to consider the same.